so much. Says, happy Thursday, y'all. Write your goals down and focus. Absolutely. Firefox 8192. Judge East. Judge, please read a book entitled Ancient and Modern Britons by David MacRitchie. It explains royal lineage.
Yeah, well,
And
political science, I did that years ago. And I kind of keep up with what was going on because I like to discover the antecedents for some of the American laws. So I'm pretty much up on those guys.
the Firefox again says, Judge, read the book entitled Dirt by Terrence McLaughlin on the royal
Laughlin,
lineage, Laughlin on the royal
Laughlin.
Laughlin on the royal lineage.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got it. And see, one of the worst things this queen did was she continued the royal monopoly for Oppenheimer de Beers. Now, who are Oppenheimer de Beers? Well, I had a criminal trial that went on for 3 weeks in my courtroom where 7 American citizens struck a diamond lode down here in an Arkansas uh, national park. They got the mining permits. They got approached by Oppenheimer de Beers, and they were given a lowball offer on the value of the diamonds that they were going to have to commit all of to Oppenheimer de Beers to keep their monopoly up. They didn't go along with it. Oppenheimer de Beers sent 4 hitmen over. They killed 4 of the 7 outright, wounded and paralyzed the 5th. They were getting ready to shoot him in the head and kill him when some Memphis police who were responding to a domestic disturbance next door rushed over. The 4 hitmen dropped the weapons. We heard about Oppenheimer de Beers, which I'll get into in a second, make the story very short. Well, we couldn't continue the trial because we broke for Sunday. We had a sequestered jury, but Monday we couldn't continue because the Bush State Department had come over and granted diplomatic immunity to the 4 hitmen, and the Navy flew them back to South Africa after they murdered 4 American citizens and paralyzed the 5th. What was that about? Well, we heard, for example, that but for Oppenheimer de Beers' monopoly on diamonds, $1 million diamond would have a real value of about $8,000, basically determined by the value of the polishing and cutting in the artwork, because diamonds are so common. And I think it was 99.9999999 etc. percentage of all diamonds in the world are in Oppenheimer de Beers' vaults. And the only way they can get away with that is because this now deceased queen granted them a monopoly in England. So all of this stuff we call a tribalism, all the warfare in Africa behind tribalism, ain't really what it's about. Oppenheimer de Beers says, this is what we will pay you for the diamonds. Don't go for it. We will depose you and put somebody friendly. And for international consumption, we'll call it tribalism, quite unfortunate, but you folks are going to have to just buy the bullet and sell it to us for what we want. So all of these killings over the decades in Africa that get passed off as tribalism, Queen Elizabeth was behind it because she granted Oppenheimer de Beers the monopoly. Idi Amin Dada, who was head of Uganda, he was really hard-nosed because in Uganda, how do you mine diamonds? Well, it washes down these rivers. So you have a gang of folks standing around with sieves and some shovel sand in. You shake it and the diamonds are left in the bottom. So in order to control those, had to be pretty ruthless on what he did to keep everybody in line so Oppenheimer de Beers could keep up with their profits. We had somebody that not a client, one of my now deceased law partners was representing here in Memphis. They were diamond merchants. And
wait, so Idi Amin was protecting De Beers?
Oppenheimer de Beers, yeah. Okay. That's why he was so damn ruthless. Now, and she gets a tie. She got a tithe, and so will King Charles from Oppenheimer de Beers, so they can keep their monopoly, which is one of the reasons that they're so wealthy. Now, all of that said, it's kind of poisonous as to what goes on, because diamonds are cheap. They are probably they're carbon, and carbon is what? One of the most common elements on the planet. So diamonds are made in the earth. They come up with volcanoes, and there are plenty of them around. So what is their value? The value is based on the fact that
Marketing.
Oppenheimer De Beers has a monopoly from the Crown of England. Now, do you know what the rarest jewel is?
The yellow diamond?
No,
Oh.
not a diamond.
Pearl?
Tanzanite. There
Oh.
was only one Tanzanite mine on Earth, and about 34, 35 years ago, the local insurgents blew the damn thing up and sealed it. So now Tanzanite from,
Mm-hmm.
and you
I
can't
mean,
get it.
listen, if Idi Amin basically protecting Oppenheimer
Oppenheimer De Beers.
years and the Queen, what does that say about Africa and these African leaders in certain countries? So they're
Well,
in on it.
well, let me say this. I had about 15, 20 hours. Hell, I hung out with these guys on several occasions. It's the heir to the throne of Swaziland and to the Zulu. He is a direct descendant of Shaka Zulu, and his brother, too. He will become his brother's already acting prime minister. So they discussed this Oppenheimer De Beers thing, and their plan was to use their graduate degrees at UCLA and USC, respectively, to set up television and motion picture programming such that you could acclimate the African to understanding what was being done to him in the name of tribalism, since they did not think you could get a political unity with the 54 nation states in Africa, but you could get a cultural identification and cooperation. So I hope I'm around long enough to see them put this in order. But that was I'd say it's about 2011 or 12 when we last had these conversations. So
Okay.
hopefully they get put into play.
All right. Well, let's move on. Van Varner. Good afternoon, Dana and Judge Joe. Do you think Black women should explore their options and date interracially to acquire wealth from here on out? Okay, so when he's going to create this dating website for Black women who want to date out their race. So he's on that.
I mean, I personally, I can't control what's going to get somebody all hot, wet, and bothered. And if you get a hard on or a wet twat, that's your business. But screw wisely, because
No
you
matter what
don't
the
want
color.
you want intelligent, non-ugly children and grandchildren. So screw wisely. And as I'm prone to say, what do you see when you see a human? Every human you see is a successful screw. So screw wisely. It's all about a screw, pregnancy, a birth, the screw growing up to become sexually mature, the courtship, the mating rituals, another successful screw, another something matures, and it goes on, and that's the chain. Now, some people are outside of that loop, but I feel sorry for them, but they want us to all go LGBTQ cult, but that's the way it is. They want to get recruiting rather than producing. So it's an interesting conundrum. But when you go deal with somebody, be careful who you screw. It may come back and fall on you. Now, there is this thing called hybrid vigor, and I've noticed some extremely beautiful women have some very homely parents who are of non-similar racial stock. hybrid vigor is a thing that's involved with genetics, but it is what it is. But most of the time, that's not where you're going with this. So, are you using it as an excuse not to do your part? Or are you just getting the hots on for something that you can't resist? Now, if the truth be known, you want to see what you're actually doing. Both of you get a DNA test, and you may find out that the white part of the couple has almost as much black in them as you do. They just don't have the color scheme part of it. And you might find that you got a lot of white in you, but not the color scheme part of it.
Right. It's because it's about science and melanin.